a video on something I found at the bottom of the vinegar bottles at work. So we've got some vinegar bottles at work. I should have brought them home with me, but I haven't. So they look like that, but they're bigger, and you put malt vinegar in them and you splash it on your chips. It's got a hole in the top, and that's a salt shaker, obviously. But vinegar bottles, it's just what we have at work. They're slightly bigger. I don't know if you know what they are. But anyway, you get them in cheap cafes, but I also have them at work. So the vinegar is constantly exposed to the air because the hole in the top. Whereas if you kind of got a lid on it, vinegar stays fresh. So I'm kept in a cupboard. I might not use them for a couple of months. So they're just exposed to the air. And I noticed the other day that at the bottom of some of them, the vinegar had gone gloopy, like that. And I was thinking, that is a mother vinegar. I thought, I hope. So it's formed into it's gone gloopy like that. It still tastes, the vinegar was still vinegary, but that means that it's going to start turning into water. So I collected the vinegar and we'll use it for something else, and then I collected the mother. And I was kind of thinking, so I collected the vinegar, so this is the vinegar from it. So it's still vinegary, but not just as much. So I'll use that in cooking, because we don't like waste, but I can't really serve it on chips. So I kind of thought what we'll do is we'll see actually if it is a vinegar mother, and if it is, it should be able to turn some wine into white wine vinegar. So this is just the cheap stuff from the supermarket. I'm not going to use all of this. I want to use half of it. So I need some wine for another project. So I don't really want to waste all of it. So we'll just pour some into another container carefully. I'm not going to drink it. It's alright. But I just use it for making white wine sauces and things. So I'm just doing this off camera. I should have really done it before. This is why my videos are probably, definitely, a bit too long. So that's about half. So we'll put it into that container, and then we'll take some of this. Lick that, haven't I? Need a fresh spoon. We'll just take some of this mother, and we'll put it in. Look at that! It's all stuck together. That's remarkable, is that? So we'll take some of this mother and we'll put it into this wine, and hopefully it'll turn it into. I need the scissors. That's ridiculous. Hopefully that'll done it, and we'll be able to make some white wine. Because I've made vinegar before, but I've never had a mother form. So hopefully that will turn into vinegar quite quickly. Because normally you just leave wine out without the lid on, and it turns into vinegar. So that's just a nice little interesting experiment to see if that actually is a vinegar mother. And it comes from malt vinegar. I forgot what malt vinegar is made from or how it's made. I really should probably look into that. But malt vinegar is what we use in the UK for our chips and things. And you can use it for other things like gastro reductions and all that kind of stuff. But it's not like white wine vinegar. But anyway, so, oh yeah, and then we need that on top because it needs to be exposed to the air. So a little bit of cloth. And then a band just to go around it. Just to keep it in place. Just to keep the flies out of it. Because should have cut that bigger, shouldn't I? Because we're in spring now, so the flies and the wasps and the bees are out, and we don't want them drowning themselves in my experiment. So leave that like that, give it a few weeks, and we'll come back and taste it. So let's have a look at this wine that's got the malt vinegar mother in it. The mother's still on the bottom. It's still like a ghost in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So let's give it a taste and see if anything's happened. It's been about 2.5, 3 weeks. Slightly vinegary. I think it's quite a sweet wine anyway, so that might be a contributing factor to it not turning to vinegar kind of quite quickly. And I think wines will have some kind of something in them that stops them turning into vinegar too easily. So I've found that when I make cider, and I use a home collected yeast. So if I collect the yeast from things like grape skins, I think I've got some. So it's still alive, but it's been in the top of the fridge. So that is a lot of grapes, and what I did was I just squished them down, and then over a few days, you squish the grapes, don't wash them, squish them, put them in a container, put a cloth over the top like that, give it a few days, and what happens is it naturally starts to ferment. Now you can collect that fermenting juice and use that to ferment other things. So, and I found if I make cider or ferment something with that yeast from from collecting that type of way, a natural yeast rather than the yeast that I bought, things tend to turn into vinegar quicker. So obviously the yeast that they use to make wine, they pick certain yeasts for its certain characteristics, and probably they pick a yeast that doesn't turn things to vinegar just quite as quickly. So that might be a contributing factor why that's not turning that quickly. Although I should have had a control, shouldn't I? I should have had some more bought wine done in the same way with no mother in it, and then we'll be able to see how quickly that kind of went off. But then I also kind of think it's quite a sweet wine. Sweet wines, it's going to take longer for that to actually start tasting vinegary. So this is random fact that I know, and I read it in a book and I thought it was interesting. So the Romans, when they made wine, they couldn't make vessels to keep the wine in that was airtight. So the vessels that kept wine in were porous, and because the vessels were porous, the wine turned to vinegar quite quickly. So what they used to do is they used to sweeten the wine with lead to take away that vinegar kind of flavour. And that was another reason for the fall of the Roman Empire, that the rich people were drinking lots of wine that was laced with lead, which made them infertile. So there wasn't like they couldn't have lots of children to carry on the legacy of the Roman Empire. But anyway, but if a wine's sweet, it's not going to taste as vinegary just quite as quick. So if I pick like a really dry wine, that will probably turn to vinegar a lot quicker. Will not turn to vinegar a lot quicker, but actually be able to taste it in the wine quicker, because there was no sugar masking the flavour of the vinegar. That's what I'm getting at. But anyway, so it's been about 3 weeks. Nothing much has happened. We'll carry on the experiment. This is the white wine that we put the malt vinegar. What is that on my finger? The malt vinegar mother in. So let's just give it a taste and see if anything's happened. Not as sweet as it used to be. It's not as sweet. I mean, I don't know if it's the malt vinegar mother that's turning it into vinegar, or if it's just the wine that's naturally turning it into a vinegar. But anyway, so I don't know how long it's been going. Oh, month and a half maybe. But we'll keep updating that video. Right, so this wine has had the mother from the malt vinegar in it for a month now. I think this experiment has come to an end. If it hasn't turned to vinegar now, I don't think the mother's gonna have made a blind bit of difference. No, that's actually starting to turn to vinegar now. So, but I don't know if that mother from the malt vinegar has made a blind bit of difference to turn it into vinegar. I don't think it has. I think leaving the wine open for a month and a half, something like that, would have had the same kind of results of turning it off. But it's certainly not a sweet wine anymore. And the mother's not really kind of done anything, so we can see the mother down the bottom. And it just looks like it's died. But anyway, but then I was thinking, the malt vinegar mother is from a malt vinegar. And I did look at it. I did some research for a change. So malt vinegar comes from when you make beer, the malted barley that you make beer out of. I'm sure it's malted barley. Didn't do that much research, did I? Then add more liquid to that. Strain off the liquid from the malt barley, and then they add more liquid to the barley malt and re-ferment that liquid, and that's what they turn into vinegar. So that is malt vinegar, hence malt coming from the brewing process. I don't know if the mother that you use to make a vinegar needs to be from the same type of vinegar. So if you're making a white wine vinegar, if you're making a wine vinegar, is it a certain type of mother that makes you a wine vinegar as opposed to a cider vinegar or a sherry vinegar? Are mothers interchangeable between alcoholic liquids that you're going to turn into vinegars, or do you need a certain mother for the liquid that you're going to turn into vinegar? Which I think possibly might be the case. So, like certain wines have a certain yeast. That's kind of what my thinking is. So certain wines, to produce certain wines, you need certain yeast and a certain grape. I think you probably need a certain mother to make a certain type of vinegar. But anyway, an interesting experiment all the same. And have I learned anything? No, but I quite like it when there's more questions to be asked about things. So I need to do a little bit more thinking about it. I also need to kind of buy some cheap wine and turn it into vinegar and see how long it took, and if the mother from the malt made a difference. But questions for another time. But this experiment's done, I think. Was it a success? No. But it's got me thinking, and I do like to ponder on things.